Jamie Patton with the Nutrient and Pest Management Program. Let's talk a little bit about prioritizing phosphorus and potassium applications in this upcoming year of high fertilizer prices. So when we look at prioritizing nutrient applications, good decisions start with good soil tests. So for a compliant nutrient management plan, you're going to need soil tests that have been collected within the last 4 years. However, this year of any years might be a good idea to go back and think about testing even a little earlier. The potential return on investment on our soil test this year is potentially very high. You'll see in that slide it's saying that at 70 cents per pound of nutrient, which is the price give or take right now while I'm making this recording, at 70 cents per pound of nutrient, that soil test only has to save me potentially around 20 pounds of nutrient application in order to justify itself. So that potential return on investment of updating those soil tests this year is quite high. And we still have plenty of time after the soil's unthawed to get those soil samples collected to the lab and get those results back so that we can make sound nutrient management decisions this growing season. Once we have those soil tests back, we can think about utilizing the test categories and their probability of response to prioritize fields for nutrient applications. So if I have a limited amount of nutrient that I'm willing to purchase or a limited amount of manure that I have on hand, I might prioritize applications to soils that are testing in the very low and low category. And the reason for that is when we look at this table on the left-hand side, soils that test very low have a probability of response to a nutrient application of greater than 90%. What that means is more than 90% of the time, if I apply that given nutrient to that soil, I'm going to see a yield response. If I have a low testing soil, you'll see that probability of response is 60 to 90% of the time. So, and that's still really good. Optimum, it's 30 to 60% of the time I will see a probability of a yield increase. So still quite high, but not as high as that very low and low testing soils. So if I'm prioritizing applications of nutrients, particularly if they're limited, I might strategize and put those nutrients on soils that are very low and low in the testing categories, because I am almost, not necessarily, but almost guaranteed a yield response for applications to those fields. In addition to looking at those soil test levels, I also want to consider soil pH. So I'm going to apply nutrients to those fields that have a pH that are already optimum for my crop rotation. So we know that soil pH can have a dramatic impact on nutrient availability. So if I'm applying nutrients, I want to get my best bang for my buck. So I'm going to apply to those fields that have an optimal soil pH. I might also think about land tenancy. So do I own or do I rent, short-term rent this ground? Since phosphorus and potassium applications are a long-term investment, not all of it is going to be utilized here in this first year. We're going to maybe want to think about applying nutrients when they're these very costly nutrients to lands that I own, so that I can continue to reap the benefit or get the higher return on investment over time to those nutrient applications versus those to the lands that I actually rent. I also want to look at fields and strategize and prioritize those fields that have historically higher as well as consistent crop yields. This again, looking at that probability of yield response. If I know I have a good soil, less compaction, higher soil organic matter, it isn't as droughty as some of my other soils, I may want to prioritize nutrient applications to those fields so that I get that return on investment. And also think about ongoing pest pressures. When we think about fields that have high water hemp populations, when we think about fields that have white mold or ongoing pest problems, or consistently have corn rootworm, I may want to move my nutrient applications to fields that do not have those high pest pressures so that I can get the most bang out for my buck out of those nutrient applications. So a lot to think about, a lot to consider if I am limited in the amount of nutrients that I can apply, a lot to consider of where I want to strategize, where I want to prioritize those nutrient applications. So, but soil testing is the key to helping me start to make those decisions. So up to date, properly collected soil tests, and then looking at those fields that have a very low and low testing soils, so are falling into those categories, are going to be a good start at prioritizing applications this growing season.